Accusations of atrocities in Iraq carried out by pro-government militias. Rights groups accuse those fighting ISIL of revenge attacks and looting. Is the government doing enough to protect all of its citizens? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Hashim Ahalbara. A video that shows a man suspended over a fire being burned is focusing attention on the human suffering in Iraq and the country's sectarian divide. The latest pictures released online appear to show members of a pro-government Shia militia burning a man they accuse of being a member of ISIL. They are heard to taunt him, saying, "These are the ISIL fighters, see what happens to them." Militias in Iraq have been accused of widespread human rights violations against Sunni Muslims, including mass killings and torture. Prime Minister Haidar al-Abadi took office in September, promising to unify the nation in the fight against ISIL. But rights groups are demanding he does more to protect civilians caught in the crossfire. To our panel in a moment. First, Al Jazeera's Imran Khan has more for Inside Story from Baghdad.
In the last week and over the last 24 hours in particular, we have seen videos go viral here in Iraq, allegedly showing Shia militia atrocities. One of the worst ones that we've seen was just outside of Fallujah, where a man was burnt. He was allegedly supposed to be an ISIL fighter who was captured by the Shia militia in that area and burnt. Now, the Shia militia we've spoken to say they deny that. Also, we've spoken to MPs from the Shia parties who say that if this did happen, these were individual acts and the people responsible would be caught and be punished, but they don't believe that they're happening. But what all of this is doing is making a lot of people within the Sunni community very, very nervous. Now, the Shia militias are taking the lead in Anbar province. Anbar province is predominantly Sunni. They were invited in by the Anbar Provisional Council, predominantly Sunni, and the Iraqi security forces see them as a very powerful force, a force multiplier, if you will, when it comes to fighting ISIL in Anbar province. But ISIL also understand the optics of all of this. They understand that if the Shia militias come in, who are backed by Iran, if there are American airstrikes also, and also they have the Shia-led government fighting them, that's three of their biggest enemies within one territory that they can fight. So they're using this to their advantage. But what's more concerning is the idea that these videos are going viral, that people are looking at them, and they're afraid that Iraq may well return to the days of sectarian violence in 2006, 7 and 8, which nearly split this country apart, and it was in effect a civil war.
Let's bring in our guests for this Inside Story. With me in the studio is Andreas Krieg, Assistant Professor at the Defense Studies Department at King's College in London. In Baghdad, Muwaffaq al-Rubay'i, Member of Parliament and former Iraqi National Security Advisor. And in London, Mohammed Sheikh Ali, Head of the National Centre for Justice. Welcome to you all. Let me start by asking Mr. Muwaffaq al-Rubay'i in Baghdad. Mr. Muwaffaq, you've held senior positions in Iraq in the last 10 years. We'd like you to help us understand some of the decisions made in Iraq and the rationale behind that. There's this sentiment among many people that the government is not doing enough to rein in the Shia militias, also known in Iraq as the Popular Mobilization Committees.
Thank you, Hashim, for having me in your show. I think you are absolutely right. The official name of the what you call Shia militia is the Popular Mobilization Forces, and they are part and parcel of, well, they are integral part of the Iraqi security forces now, and they are under the command and control of the Commander-in-Chief, Prime Minister Abadi, and they are being legislated by the Council of Representatives. So they are part of the Iraqi state. And I would really appreciate it if, for the rest of the program, if we refer to them as Popular Mobilization Forces. Now, the video which is being circulated in the social media, we have investigated this thoroughly and in a very technical, very sophisticated method, and it turned out to be a fabricated piece of video being spread and helped by ISIS themselves.
Okay, Mohammed.
I think the situation on the ground. Sorry, let me finish. What the Prime Minister, when he came in more than 6 months ago, he managed to score a very good political gain among the Sunni community, among the Kurdish community, and he reduced considerably the sectarian polarization, the sectarian heightening, and I'm pleased to say that there are 17,000 of Sunni Arabs from the tribal fighters are working and fighting alongside, and they're part and parcel of the popular mobilization forces.
Let me bring in Mohammed
Shia
al-Sheikh.
and Sunnis are forming the Iraqi polarization forces.
Okay, Mohammed al-Sheikh, you've heard what Mr. Muwafaq al-Rubai was saying. He was basically saying that the militias or the popular mobilization committees are operating within the framework of the establishment. They are part of a legitimate government. How do you respond to that?
This is not right at all. This is against the Iraqi constitutions. These militias are fighters who are provided by weapons outside the Iraqi institutions. The item number 9 from the constitution prevents the establishment of any fighters outside the Iraqi army. What has been said by Muwafaq al-Rubai is a claim and a continuous flow of lies in order to not to give the truth to the international public opinion. This is a systematic approach in torturing and marginalization and dealing with excessive powers with the detainees or even with the prisoners and the innocent civilian peoples. This bloody school has been opened by Nur al-Maliki since 2006, and it's still ongoing processes. These are war crimes and crimes against humanity. These crimes are documented. All these violations are documented and are reported. These are war crimes committed by these militias, and they are
got your point,
not
Mohammed.
questioned.
I'll get back to you later, but let me ask Mr. Andreas Krieg. Andreas, we're talking about forces deployed in mixed or predominantly Sunni areas with a potential for high backlash there. Rubai was basically saying that these are forces loyal to the government, part of the government. What do you think should be done in the future to put an end to this escalation, backlash, revenge attacks by those groups?
Well, I mean, if we look at Iraq, first of all, it's a spiral of violence that didn't start 10 years ago. It didn't start under Nur al-Maliki, and it didn't start under Saddam Hussein. We're looking at a spiral that is historic. This kind of sectarianization is something that we've seen probably ever since the end of the Ottoman times. And you see victimhood on both sides. You see victimhood on the Shia sides, you see victimhood on the Sunni sides, and that's why both sides are very emotional about it. The problem is, and we have to name the problem right now. The problem right now is that there is a government in Baghdad which might not be legitimate in the eyes of many Iraqis. And they're having a security sector, and I'm not just saying the military, because the security sector is, has different layers. There's the military, there are the militias, or the popular resistance forces, as they're called. They're all being part of the security sector, but they're not really institutionalized in the same way that you would see it with a military in a normal country. So the problem that we're having here is that you have this highly diverse security sector, which is Shia dominated, trying to protect Sunni communities in areas which are either predominantly Sunni or mixed. So we see a disruption between the Sunni communities and the security sector that is supposed to provide security for them. And this is where the main issue lies.
This is where we have the problem.
Correct.
Mr. Muwafaq al-Rubai, I remember 10 years ago you were optimistic about future of Iraq in terms of overhauling the military establishment, reaching out to different components of the society. What we've seen, and this is a feeling shared by everyone, that you have failed to build a professional army that leads the fight against ISIL. So because you have a poorly functioning army, militias step in.
I partly agree with what you said, Hashim, and also I partly agree with Andreas as well. But let me tell Andreas that the Popular Mobilization Forces is now official is now part of the Iraqi security forces. Now the Council of Representatives have included them in the budget of 2015, and also they wear the same uniform, they have the same arms, they have the same joint action with the army, they coordinate their work with the army, they do all sorts of things, activities with the army, and they are, in most of the cases, they are under the command and control of the army or the federal police. Now we have what we call joint forces. The joint forces are formed of 5 different things. One is the tribal fighter, the Sunni tribal fighters, and the Iraqi army, and the federal police, plus the Popular Mobilization Force, supported by the International Alliance air support. So these are 5 are going against ISIS now. Now, as for Hashim, very important question. Yes, I agree. We made strategic mistakes, hundreds of strategic mistakes, and major and minor mistakes in security, in politics, as well as in economy over the last 12 years. There's no doubt about it. And whether we Iraqis, as the political elite, as well as the American, and when they were in the country and now they are back in the country, we have committed hundreds of strategic mistakes, and I can't deny this.
Absolutely.
That's why we have now, in the last year, in June last year, we have an army which was defeated by several hundreds of these ISIS because of corruption, because of lack of conviction, because of lack of discipline, because of the political and sectarian influence within the army, and so on and so forth.
We will move forward and see what's the way out for Iraq. But let's just establish exactly who are these militias. Shia militias, as they were known, took the lead in the fight against ISIL after a series of failures by the Iraqi army. Now known as the Popular Mobilization Forces, many are armed and supported by Iran. They're led by this man, Hadi al-Amiri, an increasingly powerful figure and himself a close ally of Iran. But Iraq's Prime Minister insists that Amiri and those under his control report directly to him. Amiri is head of Badr brigades, which along with other militias and volunteers make up the Popular Mobilization Forces. But they're not trusted by many among the Sunni population, and critics argue the strategy is serving to further inflame sectarian tensions. Mohammed al-Sheikh Ali, are you of the view that these militias stoke sectarian sentiment in Iraq?
Yes, for sure. These militias have been established on sectarian principles. The so-called sectarian rift has been established according to a fatwa from a Sistani. And when I listen now to Muwaffaq, who wants to justify what is said about the general budget, budget has been allocated, part of it, to the establishment of these militias. It's a violation to the constitution, because these militias have been involved in the bloodshed, and these militias, the commanders of the militias, should have been put in prisons and not be given money and given weapon and being honored. You are the ones who put the constitution, Muwaffaq al-Rubai, and you have to respect the constitution. You have to respect the constitution. These militias have nothing to do with the constitution according to the Iraqi constitution, and you want to justify the existence of these militias in order to give them the right to continue the bloodshed on the expense of the Iraqi people. These militias are outside any legal framework.
Answer some of or to comment on some of the things that you've said. Dr. Muwaffaq al-Rubai, Mohammed al-Sheikh is basically blaming you and the political establishment in Iraq, which is predominantly Shia, of using the militias against the Sunnis.
That's totally not true. The Baghdad was threatened to fall under the ISIS control in June last year, to June 2014. And what saved Baghdad from a downfall is the Ayatollah Sistani fatwa, the religious edict, as well as the support of Iran and the popular mobilization forces. These are, as well as the local guys in Baghdad who defended the city. So as far as the constitution, violation of the constitution, and so on and so forth, I think there is a Supreme Council, there is a Council of Representatives which has been elected by millions of Iraqis, there is a government, and I think this claim of we are violating the constitution by forming these paramilitary groups, they are already, I told you, and I said this, they are formed at the beginning as militias. We were having militias before June 2014, but now they're all organized, they're all disciplined, they all have the same conviction. They have more than 25% of them are Sunni Arab fighters. So I don't think these are sectarian. They are highly motivated.
You know what's the problem?
Their morale is sky high. True.
Dr. Muwaffaq, you know that Al-Abadi, when he went to the United States of America, basically everyone told him, you have to rein in those militias and you have to find different ways to deal with the situation in Iraq. Let me bring in Andreas. Andreas, we're back to square one.
Right.
You have militias, some of them backed by Iran, like Badr Brigade, Jaysh al-Mukhtar, Asayib al-Haq, Imam Ali Brigades, right, deployed to Sunni areas. And the sentiment among the Sunnis that these are people backed by Iran to undermine us, and it's obvious.
Right. I think it doesn't help us here when we quote numbers and say 25% are Shia, Sunni, and 75% are Shia. It's not about the numbers. It's about perception. It's about the perceived reality in Sunni communities, and Sunni communities perceive many of these brigades and many of these. It's true, they were obviously militias initially, and I want to come back to that point later on. There is a mistrust in the Sunni communities because they don't trust that these kind of organizations can provide security inclusively. And inclusively means for all minorities, not just for the Sunnis, but for all the various factions that exist in Iraq. And let me go back to the thing with the militias. And yes, the militias have been institutionalized, and there's been an attempt to institutionalize them. But we should not forget that there are structures in the Iraqi state system which are extra-constitutional. They are extra legal in a way. They exist in parallel command and control chains exist in Iraq that are not under the constitutional supervision and have only where the president has very limited oversight over. And this is particularly true for forces who have been directly controlled by the office of the prime minister under Nouri al-Maliki. Many of these forces still are loyal to al-Maliki. They're very much in a part of a personalized patronage system. So it is absolutely imperative to fight these patrimonial structures, and especially create a security sector that's more representative. That is which most of the local communities can actually agree with and support. And this is the key issue, not just in Anbar, not just in Nineveh, but also particularly in areas where minorities exist, like Yazidis, like Assyrians. They have no trust in the security sector.
Let me go back to Mohammed al-Sheikh. Mohammed, but at the same time, there's another argument, which is basically that post-Saddam Hussein, the Sunnis would choose a passive path instead of genuinely engage in a partnership with the Shia to build a robust democracy in Iraq.
This is not true. The political system since the establishment in 1921 was not built at all on sectarian principles. The whole Iraqi people, all the Iraqi components were part of the regime until 2003. Let's remember how many members of the Revolutionary Council since Saddam Hussein were Shia, how many prime ministers were from the Shia? How many commanders in the Iraqi armed forces from the Shia? This is a claim. The claim that the Shia were not treated properly during the Saddam era is not true. All the facts said that this was not true. This happened after 2003. On the opposite, this sectarian rift and sectarian agenda has come to Iraq with the American occupation to Iraq and with the traitors of the London Conference of 2002 who divided Iraq in that conference in London according to the sects, and they are dividing Iraq as Sunni state and Urdu state and Shia state, and they have imposed this on the Iraqis and have imposed that through the so-called the 2005 constitution. We have opposed this constitution, and we have this constitution has a lot of miles, if we could say, against the Iraqis, but no one has given us a proper ear to understand. But for the time being, this agenda is there, seen by everyone. We have these militias, and we have the governments of al-Maliki, the first government and the second government, and secret prisons in the western part of Iraq. Have we forgotten a Sharaf prison inside the green area for the detainees from the western government?
If I may interrupt you there, Mohammed Sheikh, because we have many other issues to touch upon. Dr. Muwaffaq al-Rubayyi, you've said that you are committed to reaching out to disenfranchised Sunnis across the country. But explain this to me. When thousands of them were displaced out of Ramadi after it was taken over by ISIL, they were told by the government in Baghdad that they need to show some sponsorship documents for the government to let them in Baghdad, because the general sentiment is that we're a little bit concerned these guys might be affiliated with ISIL, using this as a ploy to get into Baghdad and launch attacks against people.
Let me answer this very quickly, because it's very easy to answer. I think the government and the Iraqi security forces has every right to go through a meticulous vetting security process to all those who have been internally displaced. And we have now 3 million internally displaced persons from the western provinces. So I fully support this, but of course we have to look into the suffering of our people, of these IDPs. Now, I wanted to touch upon 2 points actually. Number one,
very briefly, if you don't mind,
sensitivity towards sensitivity towards the Popular Mobilization Forces in the Sunni areas is actually only in the mind of the Western media and our Arab brothers. They are not on the ground. When you go to the Western provinces, you don't see any sensitivity from the Popular Mobilization Forces.
Okay.
As a matter, on the contrary, they invite them. Then, this is number one. Number two. Sorry, just 1 second, please. Number two, your guest from London, I think he disclosed his identity. He belongs to the old regime of Saddam Hussein. And I don't think it is wise of me to enter into this, this argument whether it's Saddam Hussein regime.
We'll definitely grant him time to express his views freely. Let me just ask Andreas about this. Andreas, it leaves us to this question. What's the way out of this polemic in Iraq? Inclusion, political settlement, or what?
It is a security issue, but it's a security issue that at the root is a socio-political issue. And I think we need to find, inclusion is obviously the nice buzzword here, and this has to be socio-political inclusion. But socio-political inclusion has to go hand in hand with an inclusive security sector. It's not just about being representative for political parties and being representative, making sure that wealth is distributed inclusively, but also providing security inclusively. Inclusively not just for the 3 grand sects, which are the Sunni, the Shia, and the Kurds, but also for the minorities. At the same time, we need to look at other ways, because it's very difficult to dismantle the current project that the Americans have set in place in 2003, which is the current security sector. We need to find a new way to basically organize security on the local level. And this has been happening already, because on the local level, a lot of minorities have already created their own security militias, their own grassroots groups. And these kind of groups need to be integrated in an umbrella which is controlled by the state, because we need to maintain a state monopoly on violence or state monopoly on force.
Gentlemen, unfortunately we won't have enough time to talk or expound these controversial and extremely important issues, but thank you really very much for being with us on the show. Andreas Krieg here in Doha, Muwaffaq al-Rubay'i in Baghdad, and Mohammed al-Sheikhli in London. And thank you for watching. As always, we would like to hear your thoughts. You can contact us on our program page at aljazeera.com. You can also post your comments at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story or tweet us at AJ Inside Story. From me, Hashim Al-Bara, and the whole team here, goodbye for now.